The Fair Tax Act was released in early January, and it's left resellers wondering, what does abolishing the IRS mean for resellers? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? There's so much questions circling this, so I think it's really important that we look into it. But my first question to you is, why haven't we done this yet?
So we have on our channel covered quite a few things that could come up and impact resellers. The reason that we were late to the game on this one a little bit is a couple things. First is that it is currently pending in the House. So it may very well pass the House, given the current circumstances. But then it would have to go to the Senate, and the Senate Majority Leader has already stated basically that they're not going to even vote on it, let alone pass it. And then from there, if it somehow did get past the Senate, President Biden has said that he will veto it flat out, and it will then not become a law. So it seems shaky at best that it would pass and become law. And for anyone that grew up in the same era that we did, Schoolhouse Rock does a very great job of encapsulating how something becomes a law.
I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill.
Which I still sing to this day.
Oh yeah, everyone does. I mean, that's how I know the whole process. Like, I'm just a bill.
Yeah. It's only a bill. But we have covered bills before, bills that haven't passed, didn't pass, all that type of stuff. So I think it's really important that if it's something that might impact resellers, that we at least take a look at it and figure out, what does this mean and what are the details? So I want to just walk you through it step by step, and just to make you not worried, this is a very short bill. Not common. Usually bills are super long, but this is very short.
About a page long, actually.
So we're going to take it step by step, and we're going to talk about what it means and what it looks like. Starts off with, this bill imposes a national sales tax on the use or consumption in the United States of taxable property or services in lieu of the current income taxes, payroll taxes, and state and gift taxes. This, to me, sounds like what they're taking is the income tax at the end of the year is going away, and then they're replacing it with a consumption tax.
Correct. It's going to be sales tax, basically, like you pay, in most states have a sales tax, where you pay a set amount over the price of the item at the end of the transaction, and it increases the cost. So if you buy groceries, gas, fix your car, etc., all the things that you spend money on would be more expensive. You just would also have more money at the end of the year because you're not paying income taxes.
Yeah. And now this is in addition to state taxes, right? So I'd still be paying my state tax?
You'll be paying all of that, because the state tax is not the same as the estate tax, which is different.
Yeah.
That's if you pass away and give money to people.
Yeah, so that's what's going to happen here. So if this bill were to pass, you would no longer have your end of year income taxes, but you would have taxes on everything you bought on your day-to-day life. The rate of the sales tax will be 23% in 2025, with adjustments to the rate in subsequent years. I mean, I'm just going to say from what I know, when they give you an introductory rate, just like when you get like an interest rate, things like that, if it's not fixed, it means it can rise. I've never seen it fall. I guess that is super possible, but in my experience, it's always been rising. And you had a little nifty thing about the 23%?
Yeah, it's not 23%. If someone says 23%, they don't understand math. So it is 23% of the final value. What that means is if you buy something for $100, they're going to tack on not $23, which would be 23% of 100. They're going to tack on $30, which is 23% of $130, which is the total bill after you count the tax.
Yes, so it is a little bit higher than they're stating in the bill. It's a little bit tricky wording there. I don't love that, but
they're doing it intentionally so that it looks like a smaller number.
Yeah, which, I mean, politics, right? And I don't love the fact that it could raise, because that means it doesn't look like there's a limit here, and that makes me very nervous. It says there are exemptions from the tax for used and intangible property, for property or services purchased for business, export, or investment purposes, and for state government functions. So right there, I see something that really does stick out as something for resellers. So it said that the taxes are exempt for purchases for business. So my first thought is, oh, so that means my inventory is exempt, right?
Possibly. If you have a business, if you've incorporated as a business for a full-time reseller, then yes, potentially you would not be paying the consumption tax if you're getting it from a qualified source that is not a retail store.
Having all of those words you said do not apply to me.
Yes. So you have not incorporated as a business, so you are not exempt. And then you get most of your items from a thrift store, which is a retail outlet. Even though they do sell secondhand items, I would be willing to guess that there is no exemption, and they're just going to charge the flat 30% on top of everything.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we can't see how this works in practice just yet. Things change, things get adjusted. But we do have an example of, in another country, they have something very similar to this. In England, they have something called a VAT tax. And if you've watched any reselling videos from England, you know that their cost of goods is a bit higher because of the VAT tax. They are paying a lot more for their inventory, which makes our margins slimmer. Doesn't make it impossible, does make it harder. And I don't know about you, but my margins are already getting slimmer and slimmer as we go along, and I would rather that not happen. The other thing that scares me here is if the price of inventory in thrift stores and such rise, that means that people are less likely to purchase there, which means the prices will continue to rise because they need to make a profit. Makes me a little bit nervous. The other side of this too is to remember that we also provide goods that are for consumption. So our inventory would be taxed. There would be a consumption tax on our inventory. I would imagine the platforms would take this on, but that makes our inventory more expensive.
It does make it more expensive for the end consumer, which to me means that you're going to likely have fewer sales unless you're taking that 30% and dropping the price of your item to combat that, to fight the 30% increase.
You want me to lower my margin by buying it at a higher price, and then you want me to lower my margin by taking away the higher price that the consumer would have to pay. So I'm double lowering.
I don't see a way for you to maintain the level of sales otherwise.
Yikes.
I mean, it's easy to buy a $30 item. It's harder to buy a $40 item.
So I don't love that. That makes me nervous as a business owner who is very much cognizant of my cost of goods and very cognizant of my average sale price. And I gotta tell you, it's not crazy high. My average sale price is in the 20 to 30 range. If we added this in there, $20 to $30 might not be feasible for making a profit.
No, if you're eating that extra fee, essentially, then there's no way.
Yeah. So, okay, let's keep reading though. Under the bill, family members who are lawful U.S. residents receive a monthly sales tax rebate, family consumption allowance, based upon criteria related to family size and poverty guidelines. So, there was good and bad things I read in this sentence. So, can I start with the good?
Sure.
Okay. So, the good thing is I heard rebate, and I love rebates. I love money back, love this idea. I think that being able to get money back for what I spend is great. I did research though, and I did find out that the way the rebate works is if you spend more than the poverty line in consumption, they will refund you. But the poverty line is low.
Yeah, you would have to spend your way down to $30,000 or so.
Approximately.
Yeah, give or take, which $30,000 is not a livable income.
No. So
not for
likely,
us in our area.
Right. So we wouldn't see a rebate more than likely, and I think a lot of you wouldn't either. But it is good that they do have a rebate in there. There are people that are absolutely going to need that. I don't think it would impact a lot of us. Okay, so then do you want to guess what my bad was that I heard from that sentence was?
I would bet that it's the monthly rebate.
Yeah,
and
the monthly.
How do you know that, and who's calculating that for us? Because we have to file our own taxes currently. I imagine we would also have to file that for the rebate to qualify.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how this would work, but the word monthly is kind of scary to me. So I don't know about you, but I get very stressed when it comes to tax time. I'm so terrified of doing it wrong. It's a lot of math, it's a lot of work, and I don't enjoy it. Not a fan. Some businesses do it quarterly, some people do it yearly, but this would be monthly. I don't know who would be responsible for it, but whoever is responsible for reporting this would have to do this monthly for every single transaction to ensure that this consumption tax was paid. I don't know if this looks like businesses would be tracking this for individuals. I don't know if individuals need to be tracking their own spend and doing this monthly. I don't know how this looks, but either way, monthly is a lot. That sounds like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't keep any of my receipts, let alone all of them. So that would be a tremendous change and adjustment to have to track every single receipt for every single expense.
Yeah, and have to file it monthly.
Yeah.
I can imagine I'd be late quite a bit. So there's that. It says the states have the responsibility for administering, collecting, and remitting the sales tax to the Treasury.
My question on that is, are the states going to want to do that when there's already a system in place with the IRS to collect federal taxes? I don't think it's necessarily fair to impose that extra cost on the states, and certain states are going to have a higher consumption rate, and higher costs to manage and oversee this.
Yeah, I just don't know technically how they would do it. I know that our state government for sure is understaffed, so I'm not sure how this would work. I don't know if there would be funding provided. I don't know. There's a lot of things we don't know, but that would be interesting to see. It then says tax revenues are to be allocated among the general revenue, the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund, the Disability Insurance Trust Fund, the Hospital Insurance Trust Fund, and Federal Supplementary Medical Insurance Trust Funds. I'm going to be honest, I don't know what those are. Do you?
Yeah, it's the general budget for the country, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, etc.
So basically where your income taxes were previously going.
Basically where it was already being spent. Just they're stating that that's what it's for.
Right. The next line, no funding is authorized for the operations of the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, after fiscal year 2027.
So that means that the IRS is going to disappear, actually, and that there's no governing agency that is responsible for making sure that people pay their taxes.
Yes, so the term that you might have heard a lot is abolish the IRS. This is where that comes from. This would essentially abolish the IRS. Without funding, nobody's going to work. I don't know about you, but I'm not working without a paycheck. I'm certain they won't either. So this would effectively get rid of the IRS, and that would mean that audits would be up to the states, I suppose, but I don't know why they would do that when it's not revenue for them. So I guess audits would go away, and that takes away that fear.
Yeah, so my main thought, while yes, I'm not a fan of paying taxes, I do understand that they're necessary. I do see a very significant rise in cash transactions and people not paying the consumption tax by using cash, so that then there's no revenue and no enforcement because there's no person looking over things going, this makes sense.
Yeah. And to end it off of the bill, they added in a nice little line here that I think it's really important, and I don't think I've heard anyone talking about, which is very strange. But it says, finally, the bill terminates the national sales tax if the 16th Amendment to the Constitution, authorizing an income tax, is not repealed within 7 years after the enactment of this bill. So what that says right here is essentially that this consumption tax is null and void if the 16th Amendment to the Constitution is not repealed within 7 years. And it doesn't null and void the defunding of the IRS. So
basically it means that there would be no taxes coming in at all for anything.
And there would be no Internal Revenue Service to do anything about it.
Yeah. So basically our government would have no money, which, I mean, again, I don't like paying taxes, but the government does need money to pay for things, to pay for the necessary things that we all enjoy, a military, basic Social Security, all of those things. That is tremendously important for the government to have the necessary funds to pay those bills so that we can have nice things.
So is there a chance that the amendment could be repealed? Like, how does that work?
So, again, Schoolhouse Rock, I'm pretty sure there's an episode on how you pass a constitutional amendment. It's very difficult. It's 2/3 majority of the House and Senate, or 2/3 of the state legislators.
Oof, that all have to agree?
Yeah, so it's almost all. It's 2/3 of House and Senate, or 2/3 of the states, which is 34 states.
So it looks like
Not happening.
If the bill did pass, which we've explained at the beginning of this video is very unlikely, there is an amendment that stops this from actually being really possible, and it would put us in a very, very dangerous position down the road. So while it might sound good to have some money coming back to you and not worrying about the income tax, that would be pretty bad if there was no funding to the government at all. So that would be very dangerous. Now, before we just leave you on that and say, okay, that's the bill, hope you guys understand, moving on, I did want to give you just a little bit of numbers. I think it's really much easier to understand something in black and white and be able to understand how it impacts you specifically. So I wanted to look at first the average family, what we're paying in income taxes, like on average.
Yeah,
so
I think that's fair.
Yeah, so we looked up the average income for an American household, and it came out to around 70,000?
70,000 or so, just a hair over, and then we had to look at the individual tax brackets.
Yeah, so we went to TurboTax to get the individual tax brackets, just an easy place to do that. So I'm going to show them to the side here, and as you can see, the 70,000 range falls into about 12% income tax.
No, just right off the bat, 12% is significantly lower than 30.
It is.
Just,
it is.
That's my level of understanding of math. 12 is lower than 30.
It is, but as you can see, there are step ups that get you to 22, 23, 24, and it does move higher up. Doesn't look like you hit 30 until you're getting to about 170,000 in income, but it is there on the bracket.
Yeah.
So if I had to pay income tax at an average annual salary of $70,000, I would be paying approximately $8,400 in income tax.
Yeah, let's give or take, yeah.
Yeah, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't want to pay that at all, frankly. But taxes are needed. There's just a lot of things that could be done. And then we have to look at the consumption tax. So we wanted to see on average how much a family spends per year in consumption. Did we figure that out?
It's around $60,000. So you actually have a little bit extra left over at the end of the year. You have $10,000. We don't. I mean, if you're doing that, somehow tell us, because we would love to know.
To have money left over?
Yeah, having extra money at the end of the year would be fantastic.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah, that would be great, but we're not rich. So
No. So if you were paying around $60,000 for your basic living, that works out to a 30% tax on that is $18,340. So you're already worse off by $10,000.
Yes. Now, of course, this would change based on your own individual habits and your own individual financial status, and it would actually be a little bit more beneficial for those of you who have a bit more money. So, of course, for those of you who have a bit more money or just have savings, all that type of stuff, your average spend does not necessarily increase with your income. That doesn't always work out evenly. We all have a base level of things that we have to buy, but after we've already established that, there's a point where you don't have to spend anymore. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. And that's where things get a little dicey for me.
I mean, yeah, you at some point, the 6th, 7th, 8th, 10th car is a luxury and you don't have to buy it. So you need a car to get around, but after that, you're not going to buy a car every year. So
Right. So it looks like it would be penalizing people that have to pay to live and that are really living paycheck to paycheck, trying to live within their means. But those who are not living paycheck to paycheck and are, kind of doing well and can spend on those luxuries, they're not actually being hit as hard in this situation. So that is kind of the long and short of it. There are other things that people are excited about in the reselling community, like payroll taxes going away and other taxes related to businesses. Again, we're not incorporated as a business, so we don't really see those benefits. But I think that most of us resellers are individuals running this out of our house. So I think it more impacts us as an individual than a business. But if that is something that you want to look into, I definitely suggest doing a little bit of research to see how it would impact you as a business and if it would help you or hurt you. But yeah, that is what the Fair Tax Act is. That is what it would mean, and this is why we didn't do a video on it, because we didn't think it would pass. But maybe things change. There's always a chance.
So we've covered other bills that may impact reselling in the past. If you want to find out more about the Shop Safe Act, for example, click the link on the screen and check it out.